Greet you all students of ME Final. This is paper 4th unit C. We have been discussing R. Parthasarthi's famous poem Exile from his autobiographical poetic collection Rough Passage. Now the poem explicates the visual image of living in exile. And we discussed earlier the metaphorical significance of the notion of exile as it marks the poet's stay in England. And you must be knowing, as I discussed it earlier, that it marks the poet's stay in England because he studied in Leeds University and where he was British Council Scholar in 1963-64. Therefore, the poet shared his experiences, bitter experiences rather, with the feeling of alienation and loss of identity and humiliation, isolation over there. So, this is the point here. But we should not study the poem from only this angle because this is what I have noticed, the critics and readers. All the time they highlight this point. This time, students, mind you, I would like to draw your attention toward other important aspects. 3 significant points I would like to discuss in this context. First, the poet, maintains commendable, remarkable objectivity throughout, and the narrative technique adopted by him, the third person singular. See here see the exile. This is the, text, and you must be thorough with the text. You just have a look. Adopted by him and third person singular. So this is one of the important points, and he has been greatly influenced by T.S. Eliot's theory of objectivity and impersonality of art. See here, he has pointed out he several times here. And he, for instance, he had spent this youth and all that, Now, another point, when I told you in the beginning, students, mind you, not only one angle all the time, because this is over discussed, feeling of alienation and loss of identity. Therefore, it is a must to highlight other permanent point as well. See the other point, students, the poet, he has honestly, transparently shared his absurd, awkward, bitter experiences in England with westernized atmosphere when he has felt so suffocated. That's right, And important, but the important fact is that at the deeper level, he tends to convey the pivotal point, this message to the youth, and that the young people, they have, generally temptation and charm and craze after foreign countries, westernized atmosphere. So this is, I think, very important point. Students, you must comprehend this point rather than focusing only one theme. That must be important, no doubt. We discussed it earlier as well. See, this message is also there, and it is reminiscent of Nissim Askil also. He has also highlighted this point, that why people are crazy all the time after this westernized atmosphere. And they are allured and fascinated by westernized way of life, lifestyle, and which is very, so-called charming, tempting, and fascinating. But reality is just opposite. Okay? So is the point here. When, see, the poet, through vivid images we have, and see the image of wall and tree in the beginning, it is there, It's very important, and I mean, it strikes the significance of bondings, belongingness to one's country. So, see, the deeper connotation is very important, and at MA level, students, it is very important to comprehend the point. So, this message inference is very important, deeper connotation is very experienced, and his experience itself becomes proof to justify what? The bare fact. And the bare fact, what is the reality? Yes, the life in England factually and actually becomes hollow. And it is, and it's just, in living in other culture, language, and atmosphere. So this is and see the exile when we discussed earlier the feeling and this notion of exile and symbolical significance, that what's that actually? Living away from one's own culture, language, and it makes the life hollow without any aim and just meaninglessness with suffocation and isolation. So the point is that pivotal point students try to comprehend that the curtain of illusion has to be shattered. So, and this curtain of illusion, delusion, it must be shattered. It has to be shattered rather, because Indian people, they have much craze after this Western culture and language, and you see this this sentence, there is sarcasm in that also, when he has used the kind of language English gods. People, as if they treat them very important people, and as if kind of superiority complex of Britishers and all that. This point he wants to highlight here. And even the language, I mean, this culture, language, and lifestyle. So this, and earlier, the youth, generally young people, they have this dream and aspiration to get settled over there. So that's why this is also one of the important reasons. And the poet, he tends to share his own experiences, that his all dreams and hopes were shattered when he really lived over there. So he faced bare reality. Third important point, students. So these two important point, and third, that there is dramatic effect, dramatic setting. This is the when he begins the poem, and throughout even there is kind of the poem begins with some scene, as if when you watch some drama, what happened, two characters, they are sitting on the stage, and they are having conversation with and kind of in their some homely atmosphere is there. But here, just opposite to that, westernized culture. But see, my point is that dramatic effect. The poem, some kind of dramatic significance here we have when he, he starts pointing out the characters, two characters, though he has used the third person, mind you, because there is objectivity throughout the poem. Now, the poem begins with the image of war. Here again, I would like to arrest your attention. I mean, two important images, as you know, here we have in this, the title, Tree and Sky. Very beautiful images we have. And students try to understand the point why specifically he has used these images, and along with that, tree and sky, because living in our country, it's tree, symbolical significance, just giving shelter. It is, it gives you food of love, being concernedness, bondings, belongingness, and affinity. with others, and see the family life and societal setup with rituals, cultural significance, and say festivals. So this is multi-dimensional significance of the word tree. And the sky, I mean, there is universal significance of sky as well. It is for all. But the idea underlying is that the poet has specified this image. Sky means living here under the shelter of, say, love and the belongingness and the people, living around your people. This kind of feeling in Tamilian culture in India. And but when he feels other sky, I mean, he has used the word other sky, means living in other country. This is what the, but the idea is here that these two images, it really attracts our attention that we are really grateful to these objects of nature. And the point is that the poet, along with these images, begins with dramatic setting, and yes, it is the wall. Now, when he talks about the wall, now it is not the wall generally we have in our buildings. The point is that the poet, here he justifies the significance of all these images, and the poem begins with the image of wall. Now, students, again, you must understand the point. It is the wall. The wall generally in houses, it's not the wall that we have in our houses and buildings or the like. Actually, it is the thick wall of fog. And thick wall of fog. Now, again, we have, see, the symbolical significance of wall. Now, what is the significance of wall? It gives you protection. Fine. But the fog of wall, symbolically, it signifies the lack of visibility. And vision is not clear. So here the poet points out that though here the holes, so the title of this, there are various sections in this poem we have, and there are 8 poems in this particular section, Exile. And though the holes in a wall, the and these holes, through holes, the poet here makes strenuous endeavor to visualize, to perceive, but because of lack of visibility, he is unable to see anything. And see, the when I discuss this point, that he was staying at that time in the basement. So we have certain image of wall, and this is wall of fog. Fog symbolizes what? Lack of visibility. So vision is not clear. So idea is that the poet himself, he is in the state of confusion, and he was living there in basement. Now we have these certain vivid images. Basement without windows and without proper air and light. There he was staying with his friend Ravi Shankar. This is what name he has here pointed out. And see the scene. It again, it gives the picture which is without any aim and meaning in life. Cigarette and all this, cigarette stub and the empty bottles. What does it signify? So we have, students, certain images here. The poets, here in this line, the poet's strong dislike against Western culture, in which people, they are sitting and just having conversation. They They are puffing a cigarette and drinking beer. So this kind of westernized culture, which is reflected in the first few stanzas. Now this cultural wall, cultural difference, so we have, deeper connotation also. We have wall of fog, and it signifies, see, the lack of visibility, vision, and it also, points out cultural wall western, of western culture. And a wall gives you protection, but if vision is not clear, it will never give you any protection. This is what he points out. And then the lamps burn in the fog because of dim light. Another symbolical significance we have. Dim light means depression, gloominess, confused state of mind. And basement flat means without windows, light, and proper air. So close mindedness also, the poet here wants to highlight. And see the picture in which the poet, he is sitting with his friend. What does it signify? Yes, that, aimless life, killing time, and they were having conversation, and they were puffing cigarette. So this kind of picture is highlighted, and it serves sharp contrast to the root. Yes, this is the point the poet again wants to encapsulate. He wants to highlight the point that this kind of, say, Western culture, Western atmosphere, and he could never acclimatize with this kind of atmosphere when people, all the time, as if they are having some kind of superiority complex, these Britishers and all that. And in this kind of atmosphere, the poet also, he also, as if in the beginning he wants to grasp this kind of atmosphere, the settings, but later on he realized the aimlessness in that, meaninglessness. What is the use of that? And when he points out, say, all the time the youth, as if he is, wearing youth, and they spent his youth wearing English gods, and after English, I mean, people, they are crazy. This kind of sarcasm on that, sarcastic expression, the poet. The inference is that, is there any point in just worrying, I mean, wooing, the meaning of worrying, wooing, and, crazy after English gods. So here, English Western people with some kind of, as if treating them as they are gods. So this is just an illusion. Our people, we must have faith in our people, in our culture, in our roots. I mean, just this is futility in, in this kind of, you see, the in being crazy after English people, English culture, westernized atmosphere. There's no point. And after having experience, he wants to share with the readers. So this is reality. Earlier, when he did not have any experience, at that time, it was an illusion. So this illusion has been shattered. And this message also the poet wants to convey. So through these various images we have, so we have, see, the image of tree also, it gives you shelter. So what is the reason? I mean, here when he points out that the poet, in the roots are very deep, because in this you are really very much connected with your culture, with your people, with the societal setup. So this rich culture of Tamil Really, the poet is very much influenced with that throughout. And it is for this reason he could not accept westernized culture. So, this is the point that poet wants to highlight here. And see, the idea underlying is that there is drastic difference. There is, absolutely, it's a sharp contrast in these two cultures. And the poet, he himself was brought up in two cultures, I mean, European and Tamilian Indian culture. So that's why, it marks the difference. And in these lines, when he again points out, see, here are certain images. So you just have a look here. This is very important point. An examination, I mean, this is one of the significant points and the questions, the symbolical significance of the important images. So his strong disliking, and through that this contemptuous expression, the poets, he has highlighted these images. And the images in which, first, the image of wall, is that clear? And then we have wall of fog, and so some cultural wall also, and the lack of visibility, all this. And then lamp burn, and this it signifies the gloominess where there in England when he stayed. So that's why it is feeling of exile. Now you must have better understanding about the notion of exile. And then we have all this, the images of this. It signifies again the roots, and then the rich Indian culture, and the sarcasm on English gods. And then again the poet, the tree, yeah, very important image, tree and other sky. What is the reason the poet has used these images? Tree, it signifies shelter and love, affinity, bondings, and all that. And the other sky, in which another country, he is living in another country, England, without love. So it's such sharp contrast to that. And living in our sky means living in our own country. So these are certain images that poet has highlighted. And then you must have better idea about the significance of the title. The title itself is very suggestive, expressive. The this exile. Yes, we'll continue.